Describing hate as a four-letter word probably isn't going to shock too many people. It's not something we particularly desire to either be on the receiving end of or to be experiencing within ourselves. It's not a pleasant emotion, it's a painful emotion. But to label love as a four-letter word, well, that's a little bit shocking, isn't it? You'll see the reasons for this shortly. As Spinoza said, our happiness depends on the nature of the thing that we love. Most of the things that we love are temporary, unreliable, and of course in the end may cause us pain. But I'll get onto that later. So just to recap things that I've said in other videos. Our central driver, the thing that defines us, is our desire to survive. It doesn't matter how you dress it up, that's what most of our activity is geared towards. Procreation through families, a family unit to make us feel more secure, the chasing after money because we believe money can enhance our survival. Clearly it gives us access to better quality medical care or food, but also gives us many more options that we may need at some point in our lives. And so this drive for survival, the conatus as it used to be called, a survival instinct, drives pretty much everything. And we share this with the animals. So this creates two reactions in us. If our survival is enhanced in some way, then we feel pleasure. We feel more powerful. $1 million in your bank is going to make you feel a little bit more powerful than you did before if you had nothing in your bank. The adoration of people around you is going to make you feel a little bit more powerful because it's a life-enhancing thing for people to do that. The recovery from an illness is a life-enhancing thing and will give you pleasure. Equally, things that diminish your prospects for survival cause you to feel pain. So poor health, loss of money, rejection by people. It's fairly endless, the things that can make us feel diminished. And so this survival instinct directly generates pleasure and pain according to whether we are enhanced or diminished in our prospects for survival. Now, when we feel pleasure, it's usually because of something. It's very rare that a person feels pleasure in their own being, which is really where we should all be going, but we don't. We go to external things. So, let's give a definition of love and hate. Love is pleasure associated with the idea of some external thing. So when somebody says they love their Harley Davidson, they're talking about the pleasure they get from sitting on the back of it and zooming down a freeway at 90 miles an hour. It's a direct experience of power. When someone says they love chocolate cake, they're saying they get pleasure from all the sugar and the fats in the cake because their body through millennia has sought those things. Of course, they're now too freely available and cause various problems with our eating habits and health. But nonetheless, we use this word love fairly freely, and then we get to saying that, I love this person. If that kind of love is romantic love, then experience would indicate that there has a very, very high probability of turning into hate, in actual fact. but we'll go into that later on too. So let's turn to hate. Hate is pain associated with the idea of some external thing. So if someone tells you you're a useless piece of crap, yeah, you're going to feel pain, particularly if it's somebody who had brought you pleasure previously. So if someone, a loved one, a new partner, say, says to you in a rage of anger, in a fit of anger, they say to you, you're a useless piece of crap, that's going to hurt you, that's going to cause a lot of pain, which in turn will probably turn into hatred. Hatred is pain associated with the idea of an external object. We may hate having vaccinations because they cause pain in the body. We may hate cabbage. We may hate a particular kind of music because it gives us associations that we'd rather not have. So the sources of pleasure and pain, and by association love and hatred, are fairly well infinite. This is how we live our lives, bouncing around between love and hatred, based on whether the things external to us reinforces or diminishes. It's all fairly mechanical. Real love is love of something within oneself. As the famous line in a song by some pop group, I can't remember the name now, says, there's nothing out there worth fighting for. It's all inside. And again, as Spinoza says, the nature of our happiness or unhappiness depends entirely on the thing that we love. So if you love something that's impermanent or unreliable, then you're likely to be disappointed at some point in time. It's just the nature of the game. You can decide that you want to play that game because you feel the payback is large enough, or you can say, no, I've had enough of that game. I would rather seek something within myself rather than be dependent on external things. I should add that seeking something within oneself doesn't mean you become some island with a fortress around it. It just means that your attention is placed differently than the way it normally is placed, i.e. we focus more internally than externally. We can still have relationships and enjoy the pleasures of life and suffer the pains of life, but that's not the only thing we experience. We have something of our own. So, talking about love, and I would have to say that many of the people that I've associated with in various forms of work wouldn't even use the word love. They would consider it to be too misused to use in any sort of meaningful context. Because what people mean by love these days, particularly love between people, is something in the order of, this person reinforces me, therefore I love them. They have the same opinions as me, they like the same things as me, so they are reinforcing my view of life, my sense of power, and therefore I love them. Well, that's not love. That's just simply animal behavior, and it's going nowhere. And hatred is something that we would rather not accept in ourselves. So one of the most common forms of hatred is envy. Envy is hatred or a pain associated with someone else's good fortune. So if somebody across the road from you, someone that maybe you don't particularly like, wins $1 million, then you're going to experience envy because you want that. And you see somebody else has got it, and it creates a contrast. So pain and pleasure in their turn generate love and hate, or hate and love is the proper way around. And we are thrown around between these two things on a constant ongoing basis. And because we really have nothing within us that is our own, we are just like a leaf in the wind. So how to address this? Well, I remember a conversation once with someone who was leading a group, and he just came to the group and said, "Why don't you tell me what you're passionate about?" And people said various things. One said he was passionate about sailing, had a small boat and enjoyed sailing. Another one was passionate about dancing. When it came to me, I said I was passionate about cigars. And it's quite true. I like cigars a lot, although I'm not, in fact I don't smoke them really very much at all these days, but I used to be quite passionate about them. I knew all the brands and so on and so forth. And he listened to us all, and he said, well, you're all misguided, because the only thing you should be passionate about is yourself. Well, I was a little bit shocked when I heard that, because of course in our society we're raised to believe that we need to be, how can I put it, selfless. Talking about being passionate about oneself seemed like an invitation to selfishness. And this is one of the problems that we have. We have picked up strange ideas along the way. One of them of which is that we need to effectively identify with everything that's external to us and forget about what's internal. So what does being passionate about oneself mean? Well, it means that primarily we're passionate about what we give our attention to. And I would suggest that the most valuable thing you can give your attention to is a sense of your own existence. Everything else is just playing nature's game. Nature has no interest in you or I or anyone realizing anything. Nature is concerned with numbers. You need to be concerned about you, because no one and nothing else will be. And so you need to be passionate about how you invest your attention in life. And in fact, as much attention as possible should be given to your own sense of being. That goes against nature, and so it's difficult. But it's the only way we get something of our own. And Spinoza talked about the nature of God, and that God was synonymous with existence. So if you're going to love God, to use that word again, then effectively you need to love existence. And the only way you get to love anything is by giving attention to it. In fact, in the Gurdjieff work, love and attention are very often considered to be equivalent things. So there you have it. Our usual use of the word love is fairly meaningless. It just means that we derive pleasure from something. We hate the things that diminish us, and that can cause jealousy and hatred and derision and a whole pile of negative emotions that most of us are very familiar with. But love has acquired this sacred status And most of the time, love is nothing but an expression of pleasure. If you really want to love something, love yourself. And the way you love yourself is by giving attention to yourself. Because nothing and no one else is going to.